Hi, so I have decided this week to try and start doing Friday reads, in which I update you on what I have read in the last week. This may or may not become a thing on this channel, depends on if I have enough, energy and time to edit and film 2 videos a week, but we will try and we will see. So in the past week, I have read quite a bit. I finished a couple books that I have been trying to finish for a while. I finished the Zoe portion of Franny and Zoe by J.D. Salinger. Franny and Zoe is 2 short stories that deal with the Glass family. Franny and Zoe are the 2 youngest kids in the family, and they were all on a quiz show called, I don't know, it's like a kids quiz show. I forget what it's called. It's Y something. So in the first part, Franny, you just meet Franny and her boyfriend Lane, and she's kind of starting to have an existential crisis. You find out that her older brother Seymour has committed suicide. In the second book, it deals primarily with Zoe and him trying to help Franny. It's really interesting. It's basically 3 really long conversations, as Climb the Stacks mentioned in her review of it. Yeah, I like this. I wouldn't say I'm like, oh my god, I love it. I'm not the biggest fan of Salinger's work, but I felt like I needed to read it to get some references. So yeah, didn't take very long. I read Franny, and then I put it aside, and then I finally sucked it up and read Zoe. Another one that had been sitting half finished for a really long time is Lucinella's Lore Seagal. I think, if I remember correctly, I got this in February in my big, online book haul. This deals with kind of it's hard to explain. I don't know when this takes place, but it was written, I want to say, in the 60s. So when it deals with the literati in New York, it deals with artist communes and poets and stuff. And I think it's the type of book that you have to be in the know and perhaps even in the situation to kind of get it, and I am neither of those things, so I really didn't enjoy it. I literally was sitting there and counting the pages until I was done. I did not enjoy this at all. Maybe that makes me not super smart, but whatever. I didn't appreciate this. Yeah, I found the characters really two-dimensional. There was this great bit where Zeus and Hera show up, and they're talking like they're actual people, but they're Zeus and Hera. That's the only part of this that I liked. But yeah, would not recommend this. I also read, and my copy is in Tales of the Jazz Age, which is this beautiful Penguin edition by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I read The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which is a short story. It's only 28 pages. I don't really know how they made a whole movie out of it, but it's a really interesting concept in which a baby is born to a family and he ages backwards. I find the concept really interesting. A lot of the criticisms I've read on Goodreads have to do with the fact that it didn't feel like Fitzgerald's writing, and I don't think that's a valid criticism, just because you can't expect everything to be like Gatsby or The Beautiful and the Damned or any of his other works, because it is a short story. I've read A Diamond as Big as the Ritz, which is a novella by him, and it is different. He writes very differently when he's writing short stories. So, and I think, at least this is my own interpretation, this is more of an exercise to get the idea out rather than, somebody who spends time on a novel. So I really enjoyed it, the concept especially. So I would recommend that, and I really like these editions. I want them all. I'm going to take a little tea break. Mostly because the next book's really long. I read this in 2.5 days. It is 850 pages or so. It is George Eliot, aka Mary Ann Evans, I think is her real name. Middlemarch, and I have this Penguin clothbound edition, and I never thought I'd say this, but I'm really mad at this edition. I'm going to talk about this for a minute. It rubbed off on my fingers, literally as I'm holding it. I don't know if you can see that, if the detail's enough, but the details are literally rubbing off. You can see where my finger was resting. Not okay. Definitely not okay. I called and complained to the bookstore that I bought it from, because I bought it online and they're sending me a replacement copy, but I went ahead and read the damaged copy anyways because I really wanted to read this. I would recommend this for fans of Jane Austen. The subtitle for it, or the alternate title, is The Story of a Provincial Life, and that is very accurate. It's very Austen-esque in the fact that it deals with a small English village and its surrounding countryside, and the people are all interconnected, they're all friends, they're all, you know, it's not for people who like really big action-y plots. It is fairly slow moving. There's a lot of detail. It's for a more patient reader, I would say. Yeah, like if you're a really big fan of like The Hunger Games, and like this isn't a criticism at all, but if you're a big fan of books like The Hunger Games and like that kind of thing where it's action-packed and like the plot moves along at a really rapid pace, I would not recommend this book for you. If, however, you are a fan of more Austen-esque, where it's small people, like small groups of people where you get to know them over a really long period of time, highly recommend it. Yeah, I adored this. Obviously I finished it in like 2.5 days, and I worked on those days too, so it wasn't even like I was just sitting reading for the entire time. I literally just flew through it. I really like the characters of Dorothea and Fred Vincy. I was really happy with their endings. So happy. They have completely separate endings, just spoiler alert, but they were two of my favorite characters. Yeah, I really, really recommend this if you like 19th century literature. But so now for a couple that I'm in the process of reading. Number one is How to Be a Heroine by Samantha Ellis. This was in the biography section. I have some issues with this. I'm about halfway through it. My bookmark there. I set this aside because I was in the section on Franny Glass and I hadn't finished Zoe yet, so I went and read that, and then I got distracted reading a bunch of fiction. And basically it starts out where it's a conversation between her and her friend, and they're arguing over which Bronte heroine they like better. The author is on the side of Kathy and her friend is on the side of Jane, and her friend makes the really valid point that Jane doesn't entirely fuck up her life. Sorry for the language if you're offended by that. But yeah, so it goes and explores all the heroines that she grew up with. So far she's gone through Scarlett O'Hara, Anne of Green Gables, Lizzie Bennet. Just trying to think of what else. I'm in the middle of Franny and Zoe. It's interesting. I have some issues with this. It does have a very feminist slant to it, which is not a problem at all. I think that's really good to examine characters and say, this is, you know, this is acceptable, this isn't a good example for people. But I find her to be somewhat poorly researched, and this is just like one little caveat and one little example, and to be fair, I'm not finished. But she starts to mention like modern heroines, and she refers to Katniss having a crossbow, which, small detail, but to somebody who understands and like does archery, really big detail. Crossbows and recurve bows shoot completely differently. If Katniss actually used a crossbow, she'd probably be dead in the Hunger Games because they take forever to reload. And that's a really like minor thing, but it's also a really easy thing to research. All you have to do is look at a movie poster and see that Katniss is shooting a bow. Like, you don't even have to read the book. And she freely admits that she hasn't read the book, so I just think that shows that she's very dismissive of like YA and young adult literature in general, and like especially newer literature, which I found it really grated on my nerves. But yeah, other than that, I'm enjoying it. I'm really liking examining them from a feminist slant. I think that that's really interesting and a really valid way to look at characters, especially in this day and age, but I am a little miffed about the lack of research in other things. So another one I am reading, this is the one I'm reading when I'm out and about. Apparently you can really hear my Canadian accent when I say out and about, so there you go, I am Canadian. Is Mathilda by Mary Shelley. This is a novella, it's part of the Art of the Novella series, and I got this last month. And this wasn't published until after Mary Shelley's death because it was seen as somewhat autobiographical, and one of the main themes in it is incest, which is really like, I don't know, it's one of those uncomfortable topics that doesn't get dealt with a lot in literature, or at least I haven't encountered it a lot in literature other than like V.C. Andrews' Flowers in the Attic. But I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm about halfway finished with it. I chose that one because I'm trying to get through them all because I get 2 a month and I haven't been reading them lately, so I have a huge stack of them to get through. And they're really easy to fit in my purse. So that is what I'm reading when I'm like doing things. And then as soon as I finished Middlemarch, I started reading Dodie Smith's I Capture the Castle, which is a children's book. I really like this edition. I picked this up at the influence of Paperback Castles because she posted a picture of it, and then I immediately went and tracked it down. I'm really enjoying this so far. I'm only like 150 some odd pages in it. I think it's set between World War I and II. Yeah, English countryside in the 1930s. So that's between World War I and II. It deals with this kind of like bohemian family. Her dad is a author who wrote one really, really amazing book and then hasn't published since. And her mother has passed away and her father is remarried, but they like the woman that she's remarried, so there's no like evil stepmother vibe from that, but they're very destitute. And then this family, like their landlord dies and his like heirs move in and they're American boys and they're at the point where they're just meeting them, so it's really interesting. I'm also really eager to see the movie with Henry Cavill in it because I love Henry Cavill and I've been told it's really good. So this is what I'm currently reading instead of studying for my exams. I'm really excited to finish this. Should probably get this done by the end of the weekend, so I will give you a full report next week on how I liked it. Yeah, this one's pretty easy. It's got like ridiculously big font and the pages are pretty thick, so it looks a lot bigger than it actually is. But yes, that is what I have read in the past week / what I am currently reading. I will possibly be back next week with an update. I hope I can keep these up. No promises, but yeah. So I hope you guys have a good weekend. Happy Easter to everyone if you celebrate Easter, and happy reading.